America, we really need to talk. When it comes to the passport bro movement, blue book gentlemen, expats, as well as travelers and vacationers, it seems like everybody seems to have a commentary for one area of the movement. Relationships between the men and the women, what modern women are doing in the United States, or the independent woman is doing, or what men aren't or are bringing to the table. And therefore, men are getting their passports and relocating to other countries. But that's not the main reason why most people, including those who are living solo as well as seniors, are leaving the United States. In this video, we're going to give you part 1 of a 7-tier series in regards to why is it that many of us have decided that we would never, and I mean never, live in the United States again. But before we get started, my name is Andre. You're watching Travel Unraveled. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell. Now let's get started. As I was saying before, the cost of living increase for seniors in the United States was too low. And at the same time, the cost of living in the United States for the average person, including many children, is too high. And so since inflation and grocery prices and rent are out of control, this is why over 9 million of us Americans have decided to relocate outside of the United States. Because for many of you, America really is struggling. Shout out to the YouTube content creator who put this montage together, The Dating Right, spelled with W-R. Make sure you subscribe to his channel, The Dating Right channel. I'm going to put the link in the description. Let's get started.
Really need to check in on those middle classers, because I'm telling you, I just went to the grocery store. I bought about 5 days worth of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, some fresh produce, maybe a bag of chips and a gallon of juice. And let me tell you, $400.
$400 for the little amount of food and other items that she acquired.
What? Half my check gone. You know, we make too much to get any EBT with any kind of government assistance, anything. I'm telling you, it's a hard life out here, especially for those middle class.
It is not just middle class, but it's also individuals who are seniors. Yes, there are those who are on Social Security in the United States that because you get too much when it comes to your Social Security checks as well as your SSI or SSDI payments, you are over the threshold to be able to receive an EBT card to bring in an extra $250 a month, but yet they still want you to pretend that you're living a good life while you're still in the United States.
So y'all need to check in because we out here hurting, okay?
I went to Target yesterday and bought 2 bottles of hair product, a bottle of shampoo, a box of trash bags, and 1 Halloween decoration, $70 on my Target Red card. That's with my 5% discount. My son's looking at the cart and going, Mom, this was $70. We didn't even get anything. Yeah, I know, kid. And he doesn't even remember a time when you could get a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent area of town for $600 a month. Now a 1-bedroom apartment in a mediocre part of town is $2,000 a month.
$2,000 a month in a mediocre area. As I often tell you guys, what we pay here for our apartment, we've been here 5 years. We pay only for a 2-bedroom, a 2-bathroom, 12-foot vaulted ceilings. We've got security. We've got a parking garage for our SUV. That includes all utilities. That includes all the Wi-Fi, and that includes the cable as well. We also have a brand new washer and dryer unit. We have a lemon tree park next to us. We've got a beautiful terrace up top to enjoy and exercise or meditate or enjoy the multi-million-dollar view. And we receive all that and even more for only $420 a month here in South America. So these are the reasons why so many individuals are leaving the United States. As I always quote, there are more Americans right now living in Mexico alone. Over 1.2 million Americans are living in Mexico. It's the largest location or the largest population of Americans outside of the United States because it's so close. And you're able to get a bang for your buck. And if there's any emergencies back home, you get to travel back home. And there are those of us that have decided not to just stop in Central America, but to come to South America and build new lives.
Gas is $5.49 a gallon. It cost me $65 to fill up my tank. Before COVID, my grocery bill per month was $350. Now it's $600 a month, and I buy the exact same amount of groceries. This shit is out of control. What does the bourgeoisie think that the outcome of this is going to be? They cannot possibly believe that extracting every last dime out of the working class by inflating all of the prices and paying us poverty wages is a sustainable economic model. And the thing is that I could be mad at the bourgeoisie all day long, but they are doing exactly what is expected. They are greedy sociopaths. This is what they do. I am more mad at Americans because instead of uniting against this common enemy who is robbing us blind, we are fighting over whether or not drag queens can read books to children. At what point are we going to stop taking this shit lying down, put our foots down, and not allow it anymore?
The number one way that I see that Americans can do something about this, if you've decided to continue to live in the United States, now for most of us, our answer was to get our passports and get out of that mess. But if you decide that you have responsibilities in the United States and there are things that you need to do, because like I always say, the only 4 reasons people still live in any country is because of family, friends, which is comforts, finances, meaning that you got responsibilities there financially, and fear. You have worries and concern that if you leave your home country, that things won't be better for you. Family, finance, friends, fear are the 4 areas in which individuals quite often stay in their home country. In the United States, over 62% to 68% of Americans don't even leave their home city. In other words, you have a 68% chance of passing on in the city in which you were born. So when people sit back and complain about the United States, I'm wondering to myself, why are you complaining but not doing anything about it? We have a bad habit in the United States of waiting for the elite, in other words, the government, our bosses, corporations, to do something about it. We could do something about it by saving some of our money. We still are the ones that have drive-through restaurants packed. We could save that money. We're the same ones that still have movie theaters packed. You go out to nightclubs are still packed, full of Americans spending money. And yet we want to complain when it's time to go to the grocery store. Yet you rarely hear anybody complain when it's time to go out to a club, a movie, or even go spend money on something extravagant. We rarely complain when it comes to that. But when it comes to spending our money for our basic needs, we always have something to say about it.
We cannot even afford to live in this country. We can't even afford to die in this country. The Republican Party is bought and paid for by the same greedy sociopaths who are robbing you, me, and our families blind every day. They are manipulating you into believing that they are going to save you from the problems that they created in your life. They have not walked a single inch in your working class shoes. They have no idea the struggle that you and I go through every day in this economy just to feed our families and keep them safe.
And I'll say this, whether it be Republicans or Democrats, they don't care. They haven't walked in our shoes. But I don't understand why we continue to elect the same Nancy Pelosi's, same Mitch McConnell's year in, year out. But what we should be focused on is electing individuals that can relate to us.
They are gaslighting you into believing that I am your enemy so that you're distracted while they continue to do their dirt behind your back because they know that if you knew what they were doing, you wouldn't vote for them anymore. Why are you listening to them?
She's absolutely correct. While individuals are focusing on mocking the modern woman or the independent woman in the United States, while individuals are steady focusing on what men are doing and what men need to bring to the table in the United States, the governments and corporations are working together while you're being distracted by attacking each other and not having children anymore, not getting married anymore. What's happening is now there's not enough people working. There's not enough money going to the Social Security Trust Fund. There's not enough money going to child tax credit. There's not enough tax breaks for you all because most of us Americans are not focused on what needs to be focused on, and that is electing officials that have your best interests in mind, or secondly, getting your passport and relocating to another location. There is no way you should be in a country where you're tolerated and not appreciated.
The Democratic Party, with the exception of a very small few, is filled with weak and spineless politicians who placate to everyone just so that they can get reelected because they want to maintain some semblance of power in Congress. Why are you placing all of your faith and hope in this party to save us? Your religious leaders are funded by the same corporate sponsors who have bought your politicians, and they are weaponizing your faith against you so that you are distracted by a made-up enemy, your gay neighbor or your liberal coworker, so that you are not paying attention to the extreme financial crimes that they are committing against all of us right under your nose. In the richest country in the world, 500,000 people are homeless when there are more than enough homes to house them, and millions of children are hungry or food insecure, having their one free meal taken away from them at school. 10-year-olds are being forced to bear the child of their rapist. People are rationing their insulin and dying because they cannot afford health care. The water's polluted, the air is polluted, the soil is devoid of nutrients because we have oversaturated it in pesticides. We're not going to be able to grow our own food in the coming decades. The planet is literally dying. And they are putting hotels up in space and telling you that they can't afford to pay you a living wage, and you are believing them. This period is going to go down in the history books as one of the most epic failures that America ever allowed to happen. Future generations are going to study this time in history and ask themselves, why did they not do anything? How could they not see?
And if you think that she's not telling the truth, or that you think that what she's saying is far-fetched, that's the exact same thing that we're doing when it comes to the Persian Empire, the Greek Empire, some Chinese empires, as well as the Empire of Mesopotamia, and most of all, the Roman Empire. We look back at all those empires now as we're going through history, and we're saying, well, why didn't they see this? Why did Rome expand itself so far to where it had its military so thin that it was able to be easily taken over in the end? Couldn't they see this, or couldn't they see that? Couldn't they see inflation taking place? Couldn't they see the fact that relationships were falling apart among men and women? But yet and still, we look at the Roman Empire as if they should have saw it. Well, it's the exact same thing for many of us in the United States. They will look back at us in the history books and say, why didn't America do something about what's going on in America when they had the chance?
And if you're sitting behind your phone right now and thinking to yourself, it's not me, it's those goddamn weirdo trans kids, then you are the people that they will be talking about.
Guys, she spoke nothing but facts, especially when she was speaking on the higher costs of just housing. You can't even afford to live in the hood anymore. I remember back in the day when you can find a very nice 2-bedroom apartment for $600 a month. But it's very sad that a lot of Americans have been pushed away from the dream of actually owning a home because the real estate market is just so high.
At this point, I think we might be living at our in-laws' house until, we get old and gray, because the housing market is absolutely ridiculous. It's so sad because back in the day, you're able to just go to school, get a good job, get married, be able to buy a house, start a family, and possibly be able to stay part-time at home even with the children to help raise them. Now it's like, no, you get married, where are you living? Maybe we're going to live in a shoebox, maybe we're going to be homeless living on the street, because why is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath like $800,000? Like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around how things are going right now, because it's like, it's pretty hopeless for this generation, for us that are trying to start our lives and get a place. It's like, rent is absolutely insane. You can't save any money to be able to buy a place. They don't want us to own anything, and they literally want to like destroy your dreams of starting a life. It's just so embarrassing.
So on today's episode of Why Are They Charging That Much for Rent, my downstairs neighbor, okay, exact same floor plan that I have. I signed my lease in January, and I know there's going to be people that's like, that's cheap or that's expensive, but whatever. 2-bed, 2-bath, 1,100 square feet. I pay $1,639 before they add stuff. But my base rent is $1,639. After everything, it's $1,715. That's what I pay every month. Okay, so $1,639. So my downstairs neighbors lived there for like 2 months and then moved out. I would love to know the tea on that, I would. And if you've been here since my Florida days, I'm not talking about the downstairs neighbors that called the cops. That's a whole separate story in a whole separate state, okay? Now we're in Texas. So anyways, downstairs neighbors move out. they moved out in Florida too, but also Texas. And I'm like, so I go on the website to see how much they're renting that apartment for. Keep in mind my 1639. $2247. I know every realtor's argument's gonna be like, yeah, but it's the summer, it's the peak time to move. Is that not like a $600 increase in the last 5 months? I'm gonna need to have like a chat with whoever signed that lease, genuinely, because you're getting robbed. They haven't even moved in yet. I don't know if anyone has, but it was the only 2-bed, 2-bath apartment open for $2247.
This morning, I read that if your parents make $100K 40 years ago in 1983, then you'd have to make $292,000 in 2023 just to have the same purchasing power adjusted for inflation.
I want you guys to let that sink in. You'd have to make over $200,000+, almost $300,000 to be able to make or live the life that you lived just a few years back for $100,000 per year. Right now, an average person that's making $100,000 per year, 100,000aires, you are living paycheck to paycheck statistically. Individuals that are making $250,000 a year, a quarter of you are living paycheck to paycheck. The average American doesn't even have $1,000 in your bank account. And over 50% of you don't even have $400 in a bank account right now, even as I speak, for emergency funds. So when I say that America is struggling and we are the only ones that'll be able to do something about it, whether it be get your passport and go to a country and take the monies that you're receiving every month and live an affordable life in an affordable, really nice country, or you have to cut back. And I know that many of you have very little right now that you could cut back from.
100K is the new 100K.
Wow. I remember back in the day, $100,000, you was almost considered rich. But unfortunately today, that's basic normal income. That's nothing.
Guys, talk about Halloween, talk about horror, talk about scary. 80% of Americans have run out of money. Okay. The Federal Reserve just published a study stating that only 20% of the richest Americans still have excess savings after the pandemic. And the other 80% have less cash on hand than before the pandemic began. Households saved a combined $2.3 trillion during the various pandemic lockdowns. Like, the savings rate was going up, and it's estimated that 1.3 trillion of that has now been spent.
Actually, to give you guys an update, since that headline that she was just talking about, Americans have officially spent that 1.3 trillion that she said that we had left from all of our pandemic savings. They put the article out in September or October in which they made the announcement that Americans are actually bank broke, meaning that all of our savings, we're at zero. The average American right now, that's how much you have in your savings account.
During the pandemic, Americans were able to save more money because they were spending less, obviously, due to the lockdown restrictions. New data from the Federal Reserve shows that excess money has now run out for most people. And when you look at the numbers by income, bank deposits and other assets for the bottom 80% of households are lower this year than they were in March of 2020 when the pandemic began.
I will never be able to afford a house. I will never be able to afford a house.
Home prices are rising nationwide as inflation remains stubborn and mortgage rates remain high as Americans compete for fewer available homes. Home prices in March were up 0.4% compared to February. Now that's the second month in a row that we have seen gains.
My parents' house that is $195,000 back in '96 is now worth like $500,000 to $700,000. My children will never be able to have the life I live because I can't afford to do it.
I don't think any of us thought when we were growing up that owning a home would be a luxury. Like, maybe we thought it would be a bit difficult, but not like a luxury that basically only the rich will be able to afford.
No one that works a full-time job should be facing homelessness. And that's what my family is facing right now.
Everybody in America kind of knows, like, it's over. Like, there will be no recovery. Like, this is not like the other times. This ain't like 2008 where, oh, we'll crash and then we'll get back up. Because right now this economy.
A lot of people felt that too. A lot of people felt that it's going to be just like 2008 after the pandemic. We'll have a couple of years of instability and then everything will shoot back up and we'll be back on point. Grocery prices will go back to their regular prices. The car prices, housing will go back to their regular prices and we won't have any more problems. But it didn't happen and it's getting worse. And the only thing that didn't increase in the United States for the average person are our wages.
This world is set up to make average American families fail.
If I can get my hands on a nice lump sum of money, baby, I'm buying land in another country and I'm out of here because there's...
Now, what she said was commendable, but at the same time, she doesn't realize that you do not have to have a lump sum of money to leave the United States. I didn't leave with a huge lump sum of money. I know other individuals that didn't leave with a lump sum of money. They just had their retirement funds, or they had their pensions, or they had investments, or they were working online for a company and the company allowed them to work from anywhere in the world. The misconception that's been sold to us as Americans to think that we have to have a certain amount of money to relocate to other countries that we can afford has been a message that has been sold to us for years, to think that if you want to leave, it's going to cost you a huge lump sum, when that is not necessarily true for everybody.
There's nothing left here but struggle.
And also, this is another reason why men are leaving the country. Do you guys know how many men I met in Thailand who have just like sold their home in the States and moved to Thailand or the Philippines? All of these men was talking about the fact that the cost of living was going up. It was getting ridiculous. And they got sick of trying to keep up with all the materialistic stuff that they had gained. A lot of these guys took everything in their house. They sold it. They had yard sales or whatever. And they sold their house and they just left. They was like, they was tired of chasing the American dream, trying to keep up with the Joneses, the whole nine. This was another reason why passport men movement grew so fast. It wasn't just because of the women. It was for the better cost of living in other countries.
When are we going to get back to the days when somebody can support themselves and live comfortably with just one income? I have a full-time job that years ago I could have raised a family on what I make, and it's like now I have to do side hustles, to supplement my income because it's gotten so fucking expensive to live.
It's crazy you have to work like 75% of your life, like donate, give up 75% of your time pretty much just to literally survive, just to live. Not to live comfortably, not to live well, just to live.
Then it's like I woke up all of a sudden and my insurance has doubled, food has fucking tripled, gas is so expensive, electric bill over double, my fucking rent went up. I can't be the only one that's drowning.
Everybody is going through this bullshit. Everyone. Can't go to Canada, can't go to the UK. Everyone is dealing with just not being able to sustain life.
I've never had so little money in my entire life. All of my money goes towards my bills and food for me to eat. And half the time, I have to choose between filling my car with gas or eating.
Wish that I could just have a job and do my job and go to work every day, and it would just pay for life. It would pay for a roof over my head. It would pay for food on my table. It would pay for medical bills. It would pay enough for me to save money so I could retire one day, basic things.
I am 36 years old and I have nothing to show for 20 plus years of work.
That's another thing. Inflation is out of control, and yet every bar or restaurant or shop I go to is packed. It's the weirdest thing to me.
As inflation remains, it would seem practical for people to want to spend less money and try to save their money, but that doesn't appear to be the case. According to a piece in the Wall Street Journal, Americans are still spending like there's no tomorrow, splurging on expensive items and experiences instead of saving their cash. So what's causing this rise in consumer spending? For more analysis, we want to bring in Rachel Wolf. She's a consumer trends reporter for the Wall Street Journal and author of that article. I guess, people saved a lot of money during the pandemic, and what economists have been waiting for is all that money to run out, and the thinking was people would stop spending. Well, the money's run out, but people are still spending despite inflation, despite high interest rates. Why are people still spending their money?
because they don't know what they're saving it for anymore. With the housing market, what it is after the pandemic and sort of natural disaster after natural disaster, people are saying, you know what, I want to be happy now. And they're intentionally prioritizing those purchases that maybe they would have put off in the past.
The way that we're spending our money is still out of control. As I mentioned earlier, we rarely complain about the inflation of drinks at a club or the high prices when it comes to buying tickets and popcorn at a movie theater. We rarely complain when it comes to going to a sporting event. We'll pay for those tickets for an all-star game or for a Super Bowl. But when it's time for us to pay for our daily average expenses, then we realize how expensive life is.
20% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in their savings account. Well, why does that matter? It matters because if you don't have $1,000 in your savings account, then you need to budget your money better. The expenses should be last. That means you're living above your means.
I don't need to budget. Prices either need to go down or my pay needs to go up.
That's not going to happen. That's that American arrogance, the American privilege that many of us have. We're waiting for somebody else to do it. Somebody needs to give me a raise, or somebody else needs to lower the prices. It is somebody else's responsibility. That's how we often look at it. And that's not necessarily true. We are at the point of sink or swim in the United States, and nobody's going to paddle your feet for you.
Because it's absolutely absurd that, like, we're living in times where, like, at this point, you got to pay to die.
The government really won't admit this, but I think we may be in a recession right now, to be honest.
Great. So our 2 bedrooms right now, they have no view, no updated appliances. Neighbors are a little loud. Those are going for $3,900 right now, which is a steal. We do ask that you make 5 times the rent. So at $3,900, you need to at least make $20,000 a month in this economy, which is great. To rent our semi-luxury apartments with loud neighbors, roaches here and there, you will need a 760 credit score or higher. Higher is better. And we also have no security cameras in the garage. So if your car gets broken into, we don't care. We do also require an $8,000 security deposit that you may or may not get back. Leaning towards the may not. We do also require first and second month's rent to move in. For our lease terms, we do have a 36 and a 48. We do need to see your entire lease's rent inside your bank account to move in. So that'll be $3,900 times that 36-month lease. On top of So we'll need to see $140,000 inside your bank account right now to move in. Also need the $8,000 security deposit on top of the first and second month's rent to move in.
But the truth of the matter is, I do think the American people need to take a bit of responsibility for this. Consumer spending in the States is just ridiculous. We got to take more responsibility in this. The things that people think they need in their daily life and they don't need versus someone that grew up in the 1920s or the 1950s. We didn't need all these extra entertainment stuff to live off of. I'm talking about people who order Starbucks coffee for $12 or people who drive fancy nice cars, and by driving those cars, people are spending up to $1,500 just on a car payment. That's almost like a mortgage price. So people need to learn the difference between what their needs and wants are and just cut back from there and just do without. Like Gary Vee be talking about, just go ahead and eat for a couple of years, and then when you get where you want to be after a couple of years, when you fix your financial situation, then you can kind of splurge a bit and have those things. But we live in the now generation. People just want things now.
So we're going to stop right there. He's absolutely correct in his commentary that people want to keep up with the Joneses. People want their luxuries now. People want to live life right now, whether it be individuals who are young or even individuals who are seniors. But we're going to take the time out to stop. But at the end of the day, if you are a person that's interested in relocating to another country, we do consultations here in regards to Colombia. All you have to do is shoot me an email. Our email is in the description. We'll set up a consultation with you so you get as much information as possible to be able to relocate easily and not with difficulty to South America, or at least to Colombia. Once again, my name is Andre of Love Crossing Borders, Travel Unravel Edition. I'll see you guys in the next video as we put our lives on airplane mode.
Make sure y'all go and check out Andre and Andrea Love Crossing Borders because he has a great channel that has great content and breaks down the mindset behind the people that's supposed to be able to move accordingly when it comes to, operating with your passport.